Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to Operation Parent with our webinar with Dr. Pletter. We're really excited to get you this content today and let you think about your digital wellness in your own homes. We wanted to let you know it is a beautiful morning here in Louisville, Kentucky, and we are so excited that each of you are here with us. We want to let you know that you will receive a recording of the webinar following this presentation. You're also going to get the certificate of attendance and a link to the survey. So if you could keep all of that in mind, just bear with me for a couple minutes as I open up the program this morning and let you know just a couple of things that you're going to experience. This is a shorter version of our program, and we're also trying it at a new time. So we're hopeful that you will, as always, our audience is wonderful, giving us a lot of feedback about our presentations and our webinars. So make sure you let us know what you think about the new time and the shorter format. You can also keep an eye on operationparent.org for our ongoing monthly parent prevention education programs, and please share those out in your communities. Here at Operation Parent, our mission is to love and support parents by providing real-world information, connection, and most importantly, hope. So I also want to let you know you will have the opportunity to download the handouts while you're here with us today. You have also received those in your email the day prior to our airing of this broadcast. So we have an excellent handout today. It's actually what brought us together with Dr. Pletter to do this webinar. He has an awesome digital ebook available for you to learn more about how to really dig in and think about digital wellness in your own families. All of our families are so unique, and the way that we monitor and approach digital wellness is also unique. But his ebook takes a really deep dive and helps us practically think through things in our own families and how we cover that with our children and our teens. I want to let you know a couple of things about Dr. Pletter. He has his doctorate from George Washington University, and he helps families every single day in his private practice with digital wellness issues as well as other struggles that come up in families. He's passionate about his work. He works so diligently and empathetically with families, and we couldn't be more honored that he would spend some time with us. He really has a strong sense and he advocates for finding balance in your own families with digital wellness so that you can protect the way that your child develops as well as their mental health. And so we couldn't be more pleased to have him with us today to teach us everything he's been studying for many years on the digital wellness front, as well as in his 23 years of private practice. So welcome, Dr. Pletter. We're thankful that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see.
Dr. Pletter, please share your camera first.
Here we go. The prompt that came up before is not coming up. So let's see.
That's okay. We'll share it again. That happens sometimes. It's headed your way.
I got it now. Okay. Am I on? There we go.
You're on. That's great.
All right. The screen was different. Okay. So in the spirit of adaptation, here we go.
There we go. Perfect.
All right. I can't see anything, so just give me a verbal thumbs up if does that look right?
It looks right. It's perfect.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. coming to you all from Bethesda, Maryland, in my private practice office, where you just heard I've been here for 23 years. Working a lot with families right at the shift from the analog world into the digital world, and working with lots and lots of families back in the early 2000s as the iPhones and the iPads and the iTouches, for those older parents in the room, remember, our parenting really took a major shift. And I was right there with you at the time. My firstborn was born in 2004. She is now 20. Happy birthday. So I've been in the trenches with you all for my entire career, basically, pretty close. So as you heard, excuse me, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice. And in addition to working with children, adolescents, and young adults, mostly under 30, I also consult internationally with families and very selected, carefully selected technology companies doing good work, one of which I might mention later today. So, so with that, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to try to give a condensed version of my talk. I usually do this live, post-COVID, and now happy to be here with you all. So key takeaways today. Second, if I could minimize the side panel so I actually could see the full screen. Maybe not. Yeah, I can't seem to minimize that. Okay, so the key takeaways, we're going to really talk about balance. And as you'll hear me say in a few minutes, and as you heard Michelle just say, that we are looking for balance. It's a key word that we often talk about. It's part of our life. It's part of our mission as we attempt to adapt to new environments, to have some homeostasis, some feeling of calm and stability. But balance is not perfectly straight, as we'll talk about. Balance is a constant state of adjustment. And so with so much digital stimulation designed to dysregulate, literally designed to dysregulate, to hold our attention, we're going to talk about how that impacts child development and certainly mental health for all of us, parents and children alike, especially our children with immature self-regulatory systems, still developing brains and bodies. We're going to talk a lot about how to foster healthy relationships with technology through that sort of balancing lens. Again, balance not being the destination, but an adjustment. And I'm going to offer as many as I can in the time that I have today, practical strategies. As I said, I'm in the trenches with you. I've worked on this curriculum for many, many years now, both to monitor and to mentor and to not just lessen the screen time, but to be able to help our kids who are future adults ramp up their coping skills, to be able to manage and balance and regulate themselves through this, at times, very stressful, intense world that we all live in. As a clinical psychologist, I often frame my talks, as I am today, with this question of what is the reason for referral? Why would you be in my office? Why did you go through the steps of showing up today and downloading this webinar? And I encourage you to take a minute to think about how you spend your time. Things that hold our attention, things that grab our attention, we tend to hold more value to, and we spend more time. Our time is finite. And so I don't take it lightly that you all are here today. And I think about the reason for referral, which in a clinical sense often has to do with change. How can I help as a therapist, as a psychologist, help you make changes? And so that's really the thread that I hope will come through as we talk today, to make changes in your approach to better support your children and to better support your entire family. No matter what your family looks like, caregivers, guardians, we are all here to raise future adults. I know it's a weird phrase. I use weird phrases a lot to get your attention, right? So we're going to talk about as a reason for referral, overuse of technology, this concept of FOMO, which I'm sure you've heard about a lot, which is fear of missing out. I often hear in my office and in talks around the country that it's less about the fear of missing out. Yes, that's a nice little acronym there, FOMO. It sounds good. But what I hear the most about and what I focus on is the MO. It's the missing out. As our children especially are inundated with both digital stimulation in both positive, really positive ways and very, very, very concerning ways, the level of missing out that comes through virtually, where they could be in multiple places, multitasking, shifting their attention back and forth, yet the missing out feeling of I can't be in all these places literally at the same time, so I have to shift. If I'm at grandma's for dinner on a Sunday night, I'm not at the mall with my friends, I'm not playing poker with my friends, I'm not other places, and I often see what's happening with my friends on whatever the platform might be, Instagram, Snapchat, even TikTok potentially, where kids are having a great time and you as a kid are not necessarily there in person or involved. It's a feeling of missing out that does not feel good and pulls us to want to be part of things. Group chats, speaking of being part of things, often start out benign enough, but again, as a reason for a referral, I often hear the drama, especially in the middle school age, where there's very large group chats on multiple different platforms, and the level of drama and lack of sleep that leads to, where it becomes very, very upsetting for many involved. Often encourage kids that I know to, less is more. You could be part of the group chat potentially, but don't be afraid to tap out at some point, or you could always rejoin later or whatever. But it leads to a lot of not just missing out, but being left out in concerning ways. We're going to talk a little bit about addiction, anxiety, depression, attention problems, executive functioning concerns. Executive functioning is the prefrontal cortex job. It's the front part of our brains, the last part of our brain to develop. The regulatory system, it controls emotions, it's involved with sequencing, prioritizing. That's a huge factor, prioritizing, and it definitely is impacted by everything in our lives, but certainly the digital stimulation is designed, as I said, to upend our executive functioning, so we stay glued to that whatever the platform is. Similar to a casino where you don't know what time it is, there's alcohol flowing, the lights are a certain way. Oxygen often is pumped into a casino's room, so it's all designed for the person to stay there and to keep giving your money away. Similar online. And so we're going to jump in. That's a quick review of the reasons of referral. And again, keep in mind that I'm here to try to help make changes. So I spoke earlier about how we spend our time. This is a recent report. You can see the reference there. Number one, parent concern, health concern. This is back in 2023. Again, post-pandemic, quote unquote. 2023, number one, just by a hair, was overuse of devices and screen time. They separated that out at 67%. Right behind that, which again sounds pretty similar to me, social media, internet safety. Again, those top three all seem connected in some way, and it's all about how are we spending our time and how are our kids spending our time. And what I added on this slide that they didn't specifically talk about is the impact on sleep deprivation, and sleep being an essential part of how we grow and how we reset and get ourselves ready for the next day and all the challenges that will come through. So I spend my days, as you heard earlier, talking to lots of children, adolescents, and young adults. And what I have come to learn and appreciate is that really they're looking first and foremost, as social animals as we are, connection. I talk a lot about the biological bases of what we're doing, and feeling and wanting to feel connected is really beyond critical for our survival as social animals, as humans, and our day-to-day lives. It's our lives. It's very much around feeling connected. That's what that FOMO is all about that I talked about just a few minutes ago. Obviously, no matter your age, I hope you're looking for some type of fun, for entertainment. Privacy is a huge concern for all of us in our modern world here. But again, if you have a middle schooler at home, or you know one, they're going to often talk about, hey, why isn't this private? I will lead the witness a little bit here and say that everything on the internet, for the most part, even though it feels often private, is not private. Everything is out there bouncing around multiple satellites. Copies are kept on multiple servers. And so even though everything feels private, it is not private at all. And in the earlier our kids learn that and appreciate that, the safer and more well-being they will have. You could, pull up the latest news story of the latest politician or person in the news. Often text messages are a big part of what is out there, embarrassing them and potentially canceling them. So privacy is something that we want to be very, very mindful of and be careful and protective of our own privacy, and helping our kids learn to regulate to help themselves be private. Obviously, education, learning beyond the pandemic, where we all thankfully relied on a learning environment that was digital. Now, it's such a huge, both positive and very, very concerning part of what I deal with all day long in terms of the ed tech, educational technology, and lots of different forces at play there. I'll leave it at that. But lots of forces at play in terms of how our kids at school, where parents are not necessarily fully involved in some of that decision making as young as preschool, lots of learning is happening online in both very, very educational and amazing ways, and obviously concerning ways. Back to privacy as well. Safety, if I could highlight one, beyond the connection, safety obviously is a huge factor for our survival. It's all about safety, and it highlights our nervous system in a way. As all these notifications pump in, we react as if there's always potential things that might cause our safety into question. And then obviously independence for our children to be learning to be future adults. As I said, growing independence is obviously a huge, huge goal of what we're here to talk about. And so, as I say here, as we look at what parents are often looking at, it's very similar with a focus on education, safety, and self-regulating. As they learn to self-regulate, as even if they're crawling away from us, they're learning to be independent, and hopefully they're looking back and holding our guidance close. But safety is a common thread, to be clear. And I often say we're sort of on the same team, right? For that child, for your child to learn, to grow, to be the future adult that he needs to be, or they need to be, but it leads to age-appropriate conflict, which you're probably nodding as I say that, and we've all lived that if you've had a teenager in your home. It feels different, but it's just like any other parenting landscape. It's just very complicated, as there's so many other influencers, quote unquote, influencing our kids and pulling their attention in different directions, unlike other generations that have come before us. I often talk about reference points, and in anxiety versus excitement, I'm going to encourage us to lean on as much excitement as possible. The anxiety is going to hold our attention because that's the alarm center of our brain, but much as you can shift into and teach our kids to shift into what are we excited about. So I'm excited to take a minute to talk about Maslow, in terms of reference point, back to an early psychology class that I took, perhaps in high school even. Maslow's been around since, I believe, the 1940s when he came up with this theory, but it's all about our needs as humans, as social animals, and it's on a hierarchy. And the three in the middle is the ones that I often talk about, and I'm going to focus on, obviously, as I just mentioned, safety needs, social needs, and esteem needs. How are we feeling about ourselves comes ahead of, are we safe? And I wonder, and we're going to talk about, how does the digital world impact? Does AI, as we keep hearing more about AI, how does that impact our safety needs and our social needs? And so I'll lead the witness again here and say that it requires a nuanced approach. I know that is, not something you hear about in the news. Everything is black and white. Everything is polarized, one extreme or the other. It's us versus them. It's a very, very concerning, I don't even know if it's a trend, but this is our world where it's us versus them. I'm here to say that we need, as humans, like every other generation, a more nuanced approach, which, if it's nuanced, even if you're going to get ice cream and you have to decide between multiple flavors, if you have one choice, you're good. If you have two choices, you probably walk out happy. If you have too many choices, it leads to anxiety because we're not sure. We tend to second guess. And when it comes to the safety and well-being of our children, our future adult children, it brings up anxiety, which is a healthy adaptation. It's a signal, an alert signal that we have to pay attention to something that might harm us or something we care about. So keep that in mind as we talk through, even as I say some things today, might bring up some anxiety, which interferes with your ability to focus by design. That's how our brains are designed. Anxiety goes up, thinking goes down. Speaking of thinking, education is a huge, and it has huge advancements, as I say, and AI is amazing for brainstorming. If you just copy what ChatGPT or any of the number of other AI platforms and engines, that is considered plagiarism and cheating. Do not do that, and make sure our kids are learning not to do that. Yet, AI is really super helpful for many educational pieces, especially brainstorming. And it's amazing for fun and the gaming changes that are happening, where every time your child or young adult logs on, they might have a completely different gaming experience, even within the same game, because the AI is adapting as it goes. And it's, again, it's something I just have a sliver of understanding of, but I hear from people that it is truly amazing. Again, I say amazing, not to be too hyperbolic there, but it truly does amaze me, alongside the concerns. So nearly every aspect of our modern life, I'm stating the obvious again, has a digital component, which again, I want to emphasize the positives. There's so many enhancements that I often talk about and I hear about from people all day long, and the major shift in our world and society as we are in constant contact with our friends, with our coworkers, parents. You might be nodding again, as it almost feels like we're just always at work now, depending on your job. It's very difficult to connect, and it feels like we're always on the go and always in contact, and so the balance often feels off. But I don't want to skip over some of the amazing accommodations for alongside the concerns with education, vision, reading, writing, math, memory. I work with a lot of students with some type of learning disability, ADHD, and other vision disabilities and hearing disabilities. And for years, there's been a growing set of enhancements and accommodations, no matter the school setting, that are really helpful to know about. Assistive technology is sort of the term. Just a couple just to note here. Dictation, note-taking, brainstorming, as I said earlier, graphic organizers, all kind of study skill aids. You can learn much more at innovativespeech.com. Joan Green, good friend of mine, who is really a leader nationally in this field. Definitely check out her resources page if your family would benefit from some of these benefits. I try to have a balanced approach here, as you heard me say earlier. So along with those enhancements, the major piece that I hear about all day long is how our digital world, how the phones, how the Chromebooks, how the tablets are really impeding and impacting how we prioritize. As I said earlier, that's one of the executive functions, the front part of our brain. There was a big study down out of people in Stanford, commonsensemedia.org, where they found, this is back again just last year, a few months ago, this came out, that during the course of a day, upwards of 230 notifications pop up on teenagers' phones. And take a second to think about what that number feels like. 230 times the phone might be buzzing, pulling your attention. And the piece that I just really want to highlight is, again, back to the biology of what that means, that our fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system, which is part of our central nervous system, is designed, if something grabs our attention, it's typically for a safety reason, back to caveman times. Our caveman brain, that last generation of cavemen, had a really similar, if not exactly the same type of brain we have now, yet our world is very different. And so every time your phone buzzes, especially with something red, a little red number, it pulls your attention. It feels like that is the most important thing in the moment, that brings you, and you are looking and you have to see, what is it? And is it, if you're at the airport and your gate changes, you want to have that notification. And if your child is flying, especially by themselves, you want to have them get notified if something changes, and they need to know. That's the whole point of a notification. It's a signal. But otherwise, it's similar to anxiety, where it's pulling our attention and distracting us in ways, and distracting our kids 230 or so times. That is majorly disruptive, especially for the school day. So take a second to think about what that would feel like 230 times or so. And I'm sure that's on average. So there's some kids who have it even more, buzzing, constantly shifting their attention back to their phone. And sometimes it's important, and often it is just, their friend did something on Snapchat, or some corporation is sending them a notification to pay attention to them. So again, we're going to talk about how to turn that off, or at least encourage our kids and ourselves to be thoughtful about when and where we have notifications on. Apps like TikTok, Instagram, pretty much every platform now, it's not just TikTok, has some type of reel, little videos. And again, the algorithm that we keep hearing more and more about is real, and it personalizes our experience, which keeps us glued to our personal device. It feels good when we're in our own little world, and connecting to what we care about, what feels important to us. And again, school phone, it's universal, at least in the communities that I've been to, which again, mostly in the U.S. There's lots of policies. What I keep hearing is that either they're there and not enforced, or they're just so inconsistent, from banning to there's a policy, but no one really pays attention to it. That's something that needs to, again, change. The policies need to get more consistent, because there's major learning loss happening. Smartphones obviously are both a help and a hindrance to sleep, distracting us. Sleep is essential, back to the biology, for us to reset and to recover, to let our brains recover for the next day. And the phones and the multitasking push everything later and later, and there's less sleep happening, less recovery, less growth. And the impact of loss of sleep on social or gaming through the night, as kids, especially teenagers, are primed through their own biology to stay up later, unless there's a reason to go to bed, which would be to wake up early to go to school. But if there's something holding their attention, it's very difficult to put it down. So again, if you need me to say this, phones out of their rooms as long as possible, even for us adults, would be better not to sleep with phones. There are alarm clocks that are not connected to phones. So here's my little digital world recipe, especially for kids under 25, young adults under 25. And I say that because this front part of our brain, the developing regulatory system, the braking system, it's what holds us back, is developing, and upwards of 25, even close to 30, that latest part of the brain is not fully developed. Part 2 of the recipe is that the kid part of our brain is overactive. The emotions, you go out to a playground and you hear yelling and screaming and laughing, I hope, not just screaming in distress, but having fun. It's overactive. And that's by design. So less braking, more engine, more gas, more going out and learning. So by the time you become 20, 25, you've gone out to learn about your world through lots of trial and error. Our kids are out there learning, and if they had a really highly developed braking system when they were 10, for example, or younger, they would be less likely to go out to learn and to try out different things in our world. And up until about 30 years ago, that was pretty common, no matter the generation. Now, learning about our world has taken on a whole new level as there's such a blurring of the boundaries on the digital world. And so our kids are out there learning about their world. It is their world. It's not just our world. It's definitely their future world. But so they need some help in breaking and regulating themselves. And that's where we come in as parents. And then part 3, if you need me to say this, is the unlimited interest-based, back to that algorithm, on-demand content and connections with both their friends and with strangers. And it holds their attention in ways that I'm sure many, many years ago, there was something that held our attention because it was a different reference point. The TV came out, the radio, but our kids know nothing different. Please don't skip over that in terms of reference point. YouTube was released in 2005. Think about when your kid was born. It was probably before that, meaning YouTube was out before then. Your kid was probably born, if you're listening to this, after 2005. Snapchat, which was originally Peekaboo, was released in 2011. Again, think about how old your kid is. Your child was probably born after that, unless you have a very young child. Old child, sorry. Just keep that in mind in terms of reference point. I grew up knowing about the Beatles. I was not alive when the Beatles came over in the late 60s from England. But it's been always part of my life putting on the radio when I would hear a Beatles song, like, oh yeah, it's the Beatles. I knew that. It's the same with YouTube or Snapchat or any of these things for most of our kids. Any Swifties in the room? This idea of red, I just want to take a minute here because the alert system often in our world is red, whether it was the answering machine, a little blinking light when you had a message back in the 1980s, that was usually red, or notifications are red. It's the nature's signal, usually probably back to caveman brain. It would hit our optic nerve differently, and it pulls us in to pay attention to that thing. Probably red things in nature presented some level of danger, so we needed to be more aware of that. Same in our modern world. Red is a notification to pay attention to, so we are safer. Back to how to turn off notifications. This is on an iPhone, but there's a version for all kind of devices. You could turn off notifications, and I highlight this slide because you could do it per app. As I said earlier, if you have a flight and you're at a gate at an airport, you probably want that app and have that notification on. Otherwise, I would go through, and this only takes seconds. We could show our kids during the school day. I would honestly encourage strongly them to turn off notifications for certain apps like Snapchat. Nice little challenge for you. How to make your phone iPhone grayscale. I do this all the time on my phone, and I show people. And again, I don't last very long because it bothers me. It just doesn't hold my attention. But you could see how to do that and just see. And even as a family challenge for a day or a weekend, as a tech break or a version of a tech break, to be able to turn that off. That's how you do it, and that's widely spread online. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter associated with getting our needs met quickly. It's not just about what feels good. A local psychiatrist here, Dr. Cliff Sussman, really tuned me into this idea of the immediacy of the feel good is what drives so much of our behavior. And if you have a weak braking system, as children do, remember that from the front part of our brain is not fully developed yet, the braking system, it's going to have a major impact on these same executive functioning demands, prioritizing, sequencing, shifting attention, inhibiting, that means holding yourself back, and then obviously the multitasking, the shifting back and forth. Humans do not multitask in the sense that we could focus on two things at once. So if a notification pops up, more likely than not, we and our children are shifting and then shifting back. And our kids can shift better than we can, faster, because they have more practice. Humans learn by doing with practice, and our kids practice shifting a lot, multitasking a lot, and way earlier than I did. I didn't get a cell phone or didn't have any kind of tablet or anything, and I was almost 30, if you believe that. I didn't think I needed it. It's kind of ironic. But our kids are from birth shifting and prioritizing and shifting back and forth their attention. So just briefly here on balance, as I said earlier, it is a constant state of adjustment. If you're one of these guys or kids riding their bike, their handlebars are not perfectly straight when they're balanced. They're going to fall. They have to adjust. They're going around a turn. There might be a bump in the road. We have to adapt. We have to adjust. And so this idea of balance is not a destination of or some elusive thing that is hiding from us that we have to find, like hide and seek. It's about looking at the trade-offs, looking at how we are adapting and the value of the enhancements on either side. And again, as I said, it requires a nuanced approach. That front part of our brain, as I said, is just developing through our childhood and into our adolescence. And again, upwards of 25 years old. That's why if you ask anyone at a rental car agency, you have to be 25. Generally, again, it's all about insurance and money. But there's less of a chance if you're older 25 of accidents. So that's that. So I highlight this idea of scaffolding, that our job as parents and caregivers and guardians is to scaffold them. And scaffolding is the support underneath the bridge, not the bridge on top. Our kids have to be up on top making the bridge. We are underneath scaffolding. It's great Netflix. There's a lot of great documentaries out there, but The Teenage Brain is one on Netflix, the whole explained thing. And again, the takeaway there to me was really about that parents are in lieu of, it's our job, it's our obligation to help our kids and future adults learn to regulate and think through what we're doing, because they have such a developing part of your brain at that point. So I already said the dopamine is most active when they're kids and teenagers, and we need to be patient with them and as they are revved up by the dopamine. So I think we're going to show a short clip here on from the producer, the pediatrician who made Screenagers.
Well, I think one thing that really helped me to start to be a better parent around this is to learn that the dopamine that's secreted in the brain's pleasure center when we get new bits of information and we look at the screens, that center of the brain is most activated when we're kids and we're teenagers. So knowing that they are so pulled into these in a way that we can't even understand has made me not be as angry at them, but realize there's a lot more I need to do as in my parenting.
So these are little electronic drug delivery devices. I know that's a crude way to put it, but that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that there's many studies that look at MRI scans of the brain of kids who play a lot of video games, 20 hours or more of video games a week. And when they compared them to people who are addicted to, say, drugs or alcohol, their brain scans are similar. So something is really happening on a physiological level. It's not just psychological.
Right. So again, back to the biology. Um, I hope I'm sharing my screen again. Okay. If not, someone stop me. So
Yes, you're
again,
good.
thank you. So just briefly, back to the biology, I always encourage back to balance to go outside. As our modern world, we are glued to our chairs, we're glued to our devices. Lean into biology, to nature, using your five senses, all five of your senses, even smell. I encourage lots of guys to go find their parents' spice rack and find a smell that they like. Different things activate different parts of our brain, and it makes them feel more intentional, and it changes how we feel. Being outside releases all kind of chemicals, oxytocin, which feels good, dopamine, again, as I said, feels good. So again, there's more and more research saying that even though the digital world really helps us function in many, many ways, welcome to being first generation of cyborgs, another weird thing, but it really does help to disconnect and get outside for stretches of the day as breaks. So again, I go back to my clinical hat, asking yourself, what is the level of disruption? Physical health, sleeping, are they connecting socially on and offline? Are they engaged appropriately? It's not about just keeping the screen away. I would not use that as the guide of is my child having a problem because he's on a screen a lot? We're all on screens a lot. Again, sorry to state the obvious, but are they appropriately engaging in this modern world and themselves seeking out the balance and learning new digital skills, not just escaping into the screen? For some of you are nodding, and just to have a quick run through of your child can't, if in terms of addiction, any type of addiction, I don't care what it is, if there's a lack of control over the use of that thing, behavior, or substance, that's problematic. Loss of interest in other activities. There's no more sports lessons, there's no more music. All they're doing is watching videos and taking in passive education. They are learning probably on YouTube, learning something. But is there a loss of interest in other activities? Does it preoccupy their thoughts? It's all they think about, talk about. And again, the withdrawal and tolerance are, that's right out of the addiction literature. So, keeping that in mind, they need more and more of that behavior, more and more Fortnite, and more problems withdrawing, and they're deceptive about it. There's a significant educational impact is often the phrasing that I use, and it does have often dysregulates by design attention, anxiety, mood, and social functioning, even though it's awesome and a lot of fun to be on Instagram Reels. And I learn things all the time on Instagram Reels where I get pulled in myself. I just try to make it as intentional as possible. But our kids often are in this sort of perpetual state of distraction and interruption, constantly shifting and changing. There's tremendous support out there, just a few to highlight. Some are run by tech companies that might have an underbelly of, not in a negative way, but selling you a phone, or they have their own app or whatever. That last one there is a group that I created many years ago that was featured on Good Morning America when Fortnite sort of ruled the roost in so many families. I developed this with my own child, actually, and it really got kicked off with that first tip where I was trying to help parents understand the game format. And so again, you could read that, and I'm not going to take too much time on this now, but for those of you who don't know, that Fortnite is a really popular game that cuts across so many ages, even young adults now. Often the original was out of 100, so it gave parents sort of a gauge, as you could see there, of where the child was in the game and trying to set some appropriate limits, so the child could either earn time to play or be trusted more, that they know they're going to come up for dinner when the child says, and they're not just constantly restarting spawning a new game. So that was very well received. Common Sense Media not only does tremendous research, great guys out of Stanford, but they really help with the blurring of the boundaries on the digital world. Great reviews and support on their website, and there's many others out there American Academy of Pediatrics, I use the most when I recommend creating media plans. I used to talk a lot about contracting. I work with too many attorneys now as parents, and so I moved away from using that word contract, and it's more about the media plan. And so I guide you in my app and my ebook. I encourage you to use this. It populates it. It gives you lots of ideas, and you can customize it really well. And it streamlines the whole thing for you to sit down with your age, no matter what age your kid is. This could be very helpful. A couple of quick things to look at. It is an adult device. I don't care what the device it is. It's out of the box adult, with very, very few exceptions. It needs to be set up, and I would have parents always know the password. And the bottom line there, number 5, act older generally in our world, and you'll be treated older. If you continue to break the rules, there'll be less trust, and either you're going to have to earn trust back, or you're going to have a more limited, restricted experience at some point. My ebook will go into this in more detail, but my curriculum really comes all together from shifting from a more reactive stance as we are as parents, as humans, that we're reactive, to shifting into a more proactive, getting ahead of things and laying out what I call boxes, digital access boxes, where we're using an incentive program, a level system, where these are just some examples, where the child is offered different levels of access based on their age and based on what they're handling, what they're demonstrating, not just what they could say, but what they're doing. And I would start as early and as young as possible, even if they don't have much digital access, especially at that very age, that young age. I certainly would recommend very limited, but I know the reality out there, and young kids, or babies even, have access to some type of device often. I don't recommend that, but I know that is what's happening. Again, I'm in the trenches. And so a couple of things to look at. And there's a growing market of lots of non-iPhone, dumb phones, non-smartphones out there that are definitely worth looking at, and lots of educational apps that have been developed and aimed at supporting our families. But even including the camera and sort of those types of things, you could set limits on and go up, and you can go up the ladder and go down the ladder. Carrots and Cake is one of those new apps and technology companies that I worked with many years ago, helping them develop this app. Definitely worth taking a look at. carrotandcake.com, and it really is a way of limiting what the young child is doing and then offering them more access in a much more proactive way. So again, as I said, balance is not a goal or destination. It's a process. It's a nuanced process, ideally, of constant adjustment and adaptation. And for all of us, I don't care how old you are, if you're a human on this planet, you're a social animal, and we need and we seek out reasonable boundaries for all of us to help us manage expectations and learn to regulate. That includes traffic laws and how we manage ourselves throughout our day as adults. Tons of Instagram things that come through all the time, depending on what you're looking into. I did a keynote a couple of months ago on AI, and my For You is filled of, because I did a lot of research on this, on all kind of really cool websites out there. These are a few just to take a quick look at. And these are really helpful for us as humans, for adults, and for our future humans. And I'm sure there's more and more coming. In closing, help our kids slow down and recognize how they're being pulled, mentoring them, being aware of how often you're staring at your screen, how often your neck is bothering you from looking down so much, trying not to text while you're driving, or at a stoplight, and they're watching you, they're learning by watching us, and try not to text them while they're at school. Even for the high school, you really need to, but wait till they're at lunch. Try to lessen the learning loss, and certainly wherever possible, and I'm out there signing petitions and whatever else I can do, helping schools be more consistent and having a clear policy that they can follow. I often get questions lined up after end of my talks. Michelle asked me to go through just a couple of frequently asked questions. For any family setup, sharing, this is for iPhones, but sharing and iPads in the Apple system, the ability to share the ask to buy system. So when the child wants to go on and get something, the parent has to give permission. I have a whole video on YouTube on this. I have a whole playlist of YouTubes you should definitely check out, iparent101.com on YouTube. But I go through how to set up not only to add a new family member as a parent, as an adult, but then to how to make it into a parent or guardian. And I walk you through that on YouTube. And then finally, there's a thing called geotagging, which a lot of people love because when they're on Facebook or Instagram, it sort of automatically knows where you are. It's the same GPS in the iPhone or Android phone or iPad or computer that can tell you what movies are playing or what the weather is going to be. It's the same satellite GPS, but you can go in per app and turn off that geotag. This is how to do it on an iPhone, but you could do that on any phone as well. I think I'm going to leave it at that and turn it back over to you. Wait, it's not advancing, but I think I more. Not sure why it's not advancing. There is a handbook that Operation Parent, sorry, put together, and I've gone through it. And there's a tremendous amount of resources there. I was shocked how many resources you guys have pulled together. So definitely take a look at that. And I think it's broken down into elementary school and middle school. I don't have that graphic. I can't seem to get to it right now, but maybe Michelle, when you take over, you can pull that up.
Absolutely. Yes.
I can't
Yeah.
but
I know you can't see everything on your screen, and but I will go through it. And I also meant to tell you, as well as Amanda this morning in our morning warm-ups, that I had an interesting thing happen last week. I was at a doctor's appointment, and the doctor has elementary age children, and she shared with me that they did a petition in their the moms of all the elementary kids in the class, and they all are holding off on phones for an extra long, awesome amount of time. So it's everybody in that class is, so hopefully they'll stick to it. But I liked that the moms are getting together and sort of agreeing and looking at the cell phone use and just trying to delay that as long as possible. So I thought that was a neat thing that happened last week.
That's wonderful, and it goes back to community and connection, because if the parents come together, in addition to the school districts, but again, made up of families, and if the families can come together, and even within friend groups, just like we did during COVID, where we came together and we made those pods or bubbles or whatever we called it, and we joined together as a community and connect around our core values. I think that is essential. So I love that antidote. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, and Amanda, also wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for us on the controls today. I'll let the audience know a little bit about our handbook. So as we said in the beginning, hope is at the core of our mission, and we know that our parent handbooks are saving lives by empowering parents with relevant and very current information, like the information that you gave us today, Dr. Pletter. We are committed to reaching more parents. That's why we're offering free webinars as well as free shipping on our handbooks. So as you started to mention, that handbook is available in elementary, middle, and high versions, as well as Spanish and Christian. So there's a wide variety of resources available for parents. And if you would like to help us spread our mission, you can go to operationparent.org/shop and take a look at all those versions of the handbook. You'll see there that the handbooks are very affordable. The middle and high is $14.99. The elementary is $9.99, and it covers just a wide variety of topics, like the tech that we dove into today with Dr. Pletter and his life's work, as well as marijuana, vaping, mental health, and so much more. There's several editions as we are talking about, so you're likely to find something that meets exactly what you need. If you have already purchased a handbook, because we know many of you in the audience have been with us since the beginning of this webinar program, you could recommend it forward to a close friend or family member. And as you know, it's just a really valuable prevention parent education resource for families wherever they're at in their journey and however old their children are. Our TNT, our Community Advocates team, is available to talk to you more about the handbook and let you know how schools and organizations are using them all across the country. And they can also let you know about our new TNT program. So this is a drug education program designed to be a full program kit in a box that's delivered to you. So you don't have to do all the legwork to pull up a prevention program. We've done everything for you, including the marketing and all of the product. And you have in a box a drug refusal education program for middle school children in your community. So if you're not local, please consider donating to our nonprofit organization. And then we also invite you to follow us on, even though we're recommending less tech on this presentation as a whole, we still like the great things about tech, which is our vibrant social media community that Amanda is building for us. So we invite you to join us there on Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. And it's a great way to show upcoming webinars and just great educational tidbits that you can push out into your community and just help parents stop and think about all the things that our teens are up against today. But as of that, we wanted to let you know here are the highlight resources, some of the things that we went through today. You can look at video game ratings. You can use that great organization, Common Sense Media, if you're wanting to double check the ratings and things on programs. You can also find Dr. Pletter here. So essentially, this is his business card on the screen. So we invite you to take a picture and stay in touch with Dr. Pletter along the way. But most importantly, dig into that handout that he has put a lot of time and research into creating, and use that ebook in your own family to sort of look at and study your tech use and where you want to go with it next. So with that, we give a huge thank you to Dr. Pletter for your time with us. We really enjoyed it. And we thank each of you for spending your morning with us. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks so much.
Thank you.